Good afternoon and welcome to this week's reading. The question that I kind of was mulling around for this week's reading is when you're filled with desire to experience something different, what helps you open up and fully engage? And I thought it was really interesting that, like when we're dealing with the concept of different, when we're looking at, making changes and stuff like that, a lot of times we jump to, well, I have to do something new. I have to go on a big grand adventure. I have to upturn my whole life, right? Like it's that kind of idea of, oh, change means quitting your job, moving your house, going someplace else, starting something new when sometimes the difference that we're craving is looking at something outside of the carbon copy of what we have been living, there's just something in doing something a little bit different. For example, if you have the same breakfast cereal every morning and you have had the same breakfast cereal every morning for years, that something different might be having something different for breakfast. Maybe having your breakfast at a different time, maybe looking at a different type of food to have for breakfast. Or, if you read the newspaper when you have breakfast, maybe it's looking at how you're going to do that. And it's never really, to me, there are going to be big, big moments of change. But when we start to have this longing, this craving, this desire for something different, our body is asking us to deviate from that regular routine, from that regular exploration experience, and open up and embrace something that is different. Um, and so I thought it was always interesting how, when somebody says like do something different or to do something new, can be simply, okay, so my new thing for today is I'm going to try a new food. My new thing for today is I'm going to go to work on a different road, right? They can be very, very simple. But if you find that you're really resistant to them, the question starts to come to be, well, where are you in your nervous system, right? Is your nervous system ready for these changes and these kind of upsets to the status quo? Because the nervous system takes a while to get used to when the status quo gets disrupted. And so I was thinking about that. And one of the things that I was pondering as I was putting this together is, sometimes we end up in the situation where, we have a choice. And do we choose to do the same thing over and over again, or do we choose to deviate and to do something different or do something new? And I think it all depends on the conversation you're having with yourself. Sometimes, if you're overwhelmed, the last thing you want is to add more cognitive overload, add more physical burden, add more, problem solving to an already, say, messy mix. And so those are the days when, just to rinse, wash, repeat are really important for us to be able to just get through the day. We're looking at days where there is more capacity for different, more capacity for change without upsetting the internal equilibrium. And those are the days where maybe the choice is something really small, right? And I always wear blue shoes to work, so today I'm going to wear red shoes. It might be something big like I haven't been on vacation in a while, so today I'm going to go on a vacation. Those kinds of things. And a lot of it is tuning into the body and saying, where's my body's capacity for this at this time? And being able to say, body says same old, same old. Body says one small choice, or body says, let's go on a great big adventure. So these are what we're being asked to lean into right now. And keep in mind, right, like that when our body seems to be craving this newness. It can be fed simply by doing something different, going someplace different, interacting with someone in a different way, even looking at ourselves or looking at the stories that we carry in a different way. And that's what we're being asked to look at, I think, in today's reading. Because a lot of times, the changes that we make and the growth that they bring into our lives are never understood in the moment. It's later, right? I know during my recovery process, I have many times where something's happened and I go, if that was me a year ago, I would have never done this. So I can see how there's growth, how there's expansion from doing new things and testing and trying out new things. So hopefully There'll be something in today's reading that will trigger or inspire or motivate you to find one thing that you can do different in your life in the next coming days. So, the purpose for today's reading is to explore ways that we can engage with our desire to experience something new. Question I'm going to start to shuffle into our cards right now is how can I remain open to experiencing life differently than I did yesterday? That's what I was saying, right? Like we're just looking at adding diversity into our lives because sometimes, leading that really homogenous life allows for no deviation. And those are the kinds of things too, speaking from my personal example, that I find can really, really contribute to a black and white way of thinking. And when you get stuck in that black and white mindset, change becomes really, really difficult. So opening up to looking at change as the shades of gray that we can explore and interact with kind of helps, I think, in that way. And what I like also to think as I'm doing this, so when I'm shuffling again, how can I remain open to experiencing life differently than I did yesterday? Although I just realized I need to rewrite that question. So, how can you remain open, or we remain open to experiencing life differently than we did yesterday? Because that makes this reading for all of us. So, again, how can we remain open to experiencing life differently than we did yesterday? And I think the really important thing to remember is experiencing life differently is just meaning to sample things. There's nothing in there that says you have to because what you're doing right now is wrong. I want to make that very clear. That difference just means exploring and expanding and looking to see what's out there, as opposed to sometimes when people say you need to do this differently or you need to try something new because what you're doing just isn't working or there's something wrong with the way you're approaching it. There's none of that in here. There's no wrongness. There's not really any rightness either. It's just about, when you're looking at making change, it's about how does it feel? And does it feel like it's something that's in alignment with where you're going? All right. I think the cards have been shuffled enough. So now we'll split the deck. We're a little fuzzy today. And we'll lay out the cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's get started. So the first question of the reading is, what deviation is asking to be explored? And I chose this word very specifically because deviation just means different from the normal. And it can be something new. So we're going to deviate from this and we're going to like completely go onto a new road, or we're going to deviate in that we're going to change, right? Deviation can be, you know, taking a whole new road, or it can be going, well, I'm going slow, so I'm going to speed up. Or maybe I'm going too fast, so I'm going to slow down. They're just different ways of doing it. And interesting that we have the Ace of Wands popping up as, the deviation that's asking to be explored. So there's going to be some sparks, some curiosity, some you know, adventure, for lack of a better word, that's going to start to kind of pop up either in your mind, in your emotions, or in your body that's going to be catching your attention. The Ace of Wands connects us directly to our passions, connects us directly to that source of excitement, that source of inspiration that has the potential to motivate us and to get us moving. Now, the thing with the Ace of Wands is that in one sense, if we feed it and we follow it, we can make it grow and we can bring more passion, more joy, more excitement into our lives. If we ignore it or if we feed it the wrong things, then the spark poofs out of existence and we're left with nothing. We're left in the dark and we're left kind of feeling dejected, maybe. And so right now, where we're being asked to deviate is how are we reacting to that initial spark? So when you're sitting there and all of a sudden you get this idea, what do you do with it? What do you do with the motivation? You're sitting there and you want to do something. You're sitting there and you get this feeling about something. What are you doing with those moments? Because that's what's asking to be engaged with on a different level. And what it's asking for is to really see where these can go. Because if you have the spark, and I'm always reminded of when I think about this kind of thing, I'm reminded of, in the Neverending Story when Bastian is at the end and the ivory tower collapses and the Empress kind of comes over and says, "Here, this is all that's left of my kingdom. I'm going to give you this one little grain of sand." And then you see in the epilogue how he's totally recreated Fantasia. That's what this is saying. I'm going to give you this one grain of sand, and between your motivation, your imagination, your creativity, all that you have, what are you going to create with it? And that's what we're asking to deviate from, in the sense that maybe what we have been doing is hearing them and seeing them and walking away from them. So now it's time to really see what the spark is holding. The next one asks, how is your body responding to your daily routines? That's going to be another indication, right? So if the spark comes, let's say you're doing the laundry and the spark comes and you have this idea, what does your body do with it? Right? Like, does your body go, oh, this is good? Or does your body go, yeah, right? So we're looking at, and again, we're into invitations, we're into openings, we're into newness, which really falls through with this idea of doing something different because you are doing something new when you're doing something different. And the Page of Wands is saying that the body reacts in a way that it perks up. Right? The shoulders will drop down, the body will perk up, the eyes might open a little bit, and you might feel this lightness kind of coming over the body. The other thing that I find with the pages is that, you know, they are message holders. So when we're looking at the Ace of Wands and we're looking at what is our passion kind of sparking in us right now, and what can we do, right? What is it inviting us to do? If I think for myself right now, for instance, like I have this idea of it's the time of the year where I like to have a garden, and I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do with my garden? And I could go, well, I could just do the same thing I've done with it all the time. But with the Page of Wands now coming, it's like, oh, maybe I can do it my garden a different way. Maybe there's a different way I can set it up. Maybe there's a different way. And as I'm going through those, I'm kind of feeling, do I want to set it up differently? How does that feel? Um, even just like I've had a garden, but is it the point now where the garden is still a passion? Because that's sometimes you're asking too, is this spark my spark? Is this spark something that really is speaking to me? Or is it a spark I've picked up from somebody along the way, where I was having a conversation with someone, I was doing something with someone, they said something, and there's ooh, that sounds interesting, but the body goes, yeah, no, right? The energy might be going, yeah, because maybe there's something there to follow, but the page will tell you whether that specific spark is yours to follow or whether you need to keep looking for your spark to follow. And because we have like right at the beginning of a process, right? When you have the ace, it's right at the beginning. The page is the first of the court cards. This is an exploration place. This is you know, um I'm trying to think of his name now. Bilbo, sitting at home and somebody knocks on his door and he opens it and there's a dwarf. He's like, hey, what's this? That's that spark right there in that kind of beginning. Our next card asks, where does your energy feel tangled, blocked, or shunted? And this is kind of coming back to this idea of whose spark and what activities are we following? Because if we're following the wrong path, our energy will get all tangled up, right? We'll end up with like this big old mishmash of energy, or it's going to get shunted. It's going to be sent off into sometimes a dead end area where it just ends up being blocked and nothing comes of it. And we want to get that energy going. And the best way to get the energy going is to look at the deviations that can help us. And here we have the Seven of Wands. And I think this is really telling to have the Seven of Wands here as the middle card, because what this is saying is that it's reinforcing the idea of the Ace of Wands as follow the sparks that light you up, do the things that energize your body, so that when other people are starting to challenge you and saying, that's a really dumb idea. Why are you doing that? I would never do that. You need to stop that. You can stand tall and say, I am following what feels good for me and what gives me energy and what inspires me to keep going. Because the Seven of Wands is setting very firm, very clear boundaries on our external relationships. So when we have the Seven of Wands, it's asking, have you done the work within yourself so that when you're challenged from other people, you can sit there and say, I know myself. I am grounded in myself and I am very confident in who I am. And so, in that sense, you can have the courage to be able to face up against people that are going to try to bring you down, that are going to try to, through no, not necessarily through malicious ways, but through their lack of understanding, through their own personal point of view, they're going to be like going, "Hey, this feels uncomfortable for me, so you need to help me feel comfortable by stopping what you're doing, even though what you're doing is making you feel comfortable." And then the Seven of Wands is us saying, "Sorry, you're uncomfortable. That has nothing to do with me. It is not mine to carry that. It's something you need to work on." And that's why it's important for us to know that we're following our sparks and we're doing what energizes us so that we can say that with confidence and with, conviction. So then once we've done all of that, what's the story that wants to be recreated? So we've been living in a story, and when we deviate, when we change, when we bring newness into our lives, the story has to be altered. And what we're doing is we're recreating a story because sometimes the story that we have is okay, but if we recreate it on a different level, if we recreate it from a different lens, then it becomes a different story. And interesting that we have the nine, sorry, the 10 of Wands. So we go from the 7 of Wands, which is I'm going to set my boundary. I'm going to like this is my line in the sand, and this is where it is. And when you do that, the 10 of Wands makes a perfectly acceptable next step in the sense that the 10 of Wands is also about putting lines in the sand and being aware of what's yours. I know I've seen it on the internet quite a few times, and we used to have it when I was teaching. It's the circle of responsibility kind of thing, where it's like in the inner circle is what is mine, and then the outer circle is what belongs to everybody else. And I think that's the perfect visual representation of the 10 of Wands is being able to sit there and say, what is actually mine to carry? And what do I have the capacity of what is mine to carry? Because sometimes we carry a lot of things and we have to realize that maybe this can be put down for a little while because I have to focus on this thing over here. And when you're focusing on this thing over here, then you let the other thing go. You don't allow it to seep into your mind as much as you can because we know the mind has a mind of its own. But at the same time, while you're dealing with, triaging kind of the commitments and the weight of what it is that you're carrying and that what you know is your responsibility, you also have to be going through the process of decluttering, purging what you've taken on that does belong to other people so that you can honestly say to people, this is not my issue, right? It's going back to this. You're uncomfortable. So what, right? Like be uncomfortable. Why are you putting that on me? And that's what the 10 of Wands is. Why are you putting, I'll put it this way here. Why are you putting your discomfort on me? Because it's not. That's not how life works. And if we have that confidence to be able to say, that is yours to carry, right? That I refuse to take that on any longer, then you drop one of the wands off and your load becomes a little bit lighter and you breathe a bit easier. And so it's really important for us to be able to be aware of how that's working and making these changes, making these differences. And sometimes it's just simply a matter of having a different conversation. I'm really sorry you feel uncomfortable. I need to do this because it's what makes me feel comfortable and makes me feel happy. And if knowing that I'm happy about this helps to ease your discomfort, that's great. But don't expect me to make myself feel bad to make you feel good. That's their job. And the last one we have is what new perception is emerging? Because as I said, the perception and the understanding comes out after the fact. So when we go through these steps, there is a knowingness that comes out from that of understanding of how things have shifted. What is the difference now? What is the new storyline that's going through? And here we have the Two of Swords, which I will say is interesting because it's the first sword we have. And other than the Page of Pentacles, everything else here is wands. Everything else is all energetic. It's all in how we interact with people and how we deal with people. And then we're finishing with the Two of Swords, which I think is a beautiful opening because when we look at the new perception that's coming through with the Two of Swords, it's the perception to choose. It's the understanding that we can choose what fits for us. We now know what sparks our passion, what motivates us to get things going. We now know how the body reacts to things that are in alignment with what we're going to be doing, what we want to be doing, and how we can shift and change. That's all allowed us to be able to set really clear, firm boundaries between us and the other people around us so that we know that what we're carrying right now is what we have the capacity to carry and is ours to carry, that we've been able to, give things back that belong to other people and put aside things that can wait for another time. And when we've got all of that, we understand now that when choices come to us, we have the right, we have the power, we have the capacity to choose the path that will align with our passions, that will, be inspired by how our bodies react to this. Because crossroads, like these changes, like these differences that we've been exploring, crossroads will ask us to leave something behind while we go and explore something different, something new. And so going through all this makes us much more comfortable to be able to trust our judgment and our beliefs when we're making these decisions and these choices. And so I think that it's very, very telling that if we go through all of these steps, that we end up with mental clarity and the ability to make choices without having to beat ourselves down, without having to doubt and second guess, because the Two of Swords lands in the air category, which is all about contracts. It's all about communication. It's all about conflict and being able to navigate that area of the mind where conflicts can be blown out of proportion in our minds in 2 seconds, right? And so being able to trust that we will know what it is that we're going to do next. That's what comes out of all of this. And I really love this Two of Swords because she's in a position of defense, but she's relaxed enough to know that there's no threat that she feels coming at her. Because when you look at her position, right? Like she's on the floor, she's in some great position that I don't know that I would ever be able to get into at this point, but good for her. And then she's blindfolded. And there's this very deep sense of trust in here that she knows what needs to be done when the time comes and that there's no need to have to worry or to be distracted by other things. And that's what we're working towards. And when we're able to kind of embrace everything that has come forward, and experimented with differences, experimented with change, tried new things, gone on adventures, big and small. When we've done all of that, we know ourselves better. And when we know ourselves better, we understand when those crossroad moments of that Two of Swords shows up, and we're able to interact with them and understand them so that we can make choices that continue to feed our passions, that continue to give us the energy and the motivation to remain in alignment with what speaks and to us and sings in our hearts. So with that, I hope you have enjoyed this week's reading and that you will continue to come back and watch the readings in the future, and that you did gain some bit of, I don't know, guidance, some kind of nugget for you that's going to help you through the rest of the day, the rest of the week, whenever you're watching this, because that really is the hope that I have when I do these readings. So with that said, I am so glad that you've watched to the end of the video and that you will come back. In the meantime, take care, and I will see you around the webs.